Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight for our Core Advocate webinar, Taking Care of Students and Educators During the School Year, a conversation with the Core Advocate Advisory Board. So we're going to give everyone just another minute or so to get logged on. But in the meantime, I see a lot of you maybe are familiar with how we do things around here. We'd love for you to introduce yourself in the group chat. So you can start getting familiar with the different buttons and ways to interact with each other tonight. So the blue button that you see with the two little speech bubbles, we'll be using that a lot tonight to chat with one another. And you can start by introducing yourself, where you're from, and what grade or student population you teach. And you can do that by using the blue speech bubble button. Another thing you can do right now is take a look at the green resource widget. There's a lot of links in there that we'll be going through later in the presentation, resources, websites, things you'll want to explore after they're introduced to you by our panelists tonight. But you can go ahead and take a sneak peek right now. And then in another 30 seconds, we'll get going with the webinar. Alrighty, well, let's get going. Looks like we have a good number of people on already. So once again, thank you for joining us tonight. Our webinar is going to be a panel discussion with our Core Advocate Advisory Board. And tonight you'll be hearing from myself. I'm Claire Rivera. I'm the Digital Strategy Manager, and I'll be one of your hosts for tonight. And then Jenny Beltramini will be leading the panel discussion with our Core Advocate Advisory Board, Melissa, Glenna, Tara, Janice, and Ashley. So as we always do, we're curious just how many of you are familiar with how we do things on the webinar, how many of you have attended webinars in the past. Go ahead and click whichever button applies to your attendance record, and we'll see who we have tonight. Wow, everyone is a first-timer? I feel like I want to give people more time to respond. Surely that is totally possible, but surprises me. But that's great. So welcome, everybody. We're really glad that you joined us tonight, and that makes my next slide even more applicable, which is the link to our Core Advocate sign up. So this is a Core Advocate webinar, and you don't have to be a member of our Core Advocate network to attend, but we'd love for you to join us and continue to get more opportunities. And the website here, the link is a link to the survey, which allows you to sign up and become a part of our network. You can also learn more about the network and about our organization, Student Achievement Partners, by contacting Jenny Beltramini or Joy DeLisa Osborne directly. You see their email addresses here. And you will get these slides after the webinar is complete, so no need to scramble to write down email addresses now. And you can also visit our website, achievethecore.org. We have lots of free resources, professional learning for teachers there. If you are on Twitter, we'd love for you to tweet along with us tonight using hashtag Core Advocates and help spread information, resources, what you're learning with your professional network. You can also connect directly with the panelists that you'll hear tonight. Their handles are here, so if you want to tweet at them directly, you can do so. There are other ways to engage with us tonight, though, so I just want to go over the different opportunities you have to engage with this webinar platform. So the Q&A box, that's a purple box that has the Q&A on it, and that's where you can send a question directly to one of the panelists or to the panelists as a group. The rest of the attendees won't see that question, so that comes just to the presenters. And then the green resource widget has links, and resources also has the slide deck that you'll be seeing tonight. So if you're interested in opening the slide deck in another window, you already have access to it right now. And you also have the group chat button. And we'll be using that at various points in tonight's panel discussion to engage everyone in the discussion. Lastly, you'll get 1 hour of professional learning credit for tonight's presentation, and you can download that certificate after you've watched at least 45 minutes of the presentation. That is the mandatory requirement to get the 1 hour learning credit. And then after the webinar, the recording of the webinar and the slides and everything that's in that resource widget will be made available to you for all time. So if you like one of the links or you want to see the slides again, that will always be available to you by just logging in again, and we'll also email it to you. And once again, so the certification for 1 hour of professional learning credit will also always be available to you. So if you don't print it and you want to go back and you want to print it in a couple months, you always have access to that through this little button. So you just log in again using the same credentials that you registered with, and that little button will always have that certificate available to you. It doesn't expire. All right, so I'm going to toss it over to Jenny to talk about the goals of tonight's webinar.
Great. Thank you, Claire. We are so excited that those of you who have joined us this evening are going to get a chance to meet some of the educators who serve on our Core Advocate Advisory Board. They're amazing educators, and we can't wait to give you the opportunity to hear from them. They're going to talk to you specifically around what they've learned this year about taking care of their students and themselves, and how attending to the identities of their students and themselves has been helping to shape their work. And we have a lot of resources to share with you this evening. So we're hoping that you will find something valuable, a resource or an idea to consider for your own school or your classroom or your community. So this is our Core Advocate Advisory Board. We have 12 educators that sit on our advisory board, and it's a year-long term that they're on. They're going to be completing it in the spring. And so the advisory board members that are with us this evening are Melissa, Janice, Glenna, Tara, and Ashley. And I also wanted to let you know that Daniela, Lisa, Karina, Bernice, Nathan, Jesse, and Kelly were not able to be with us tonight, but they also are on the advisory board. And you can learn about all of them if you visit the About Us section of our website, achievethecore.org. So we're going to dive in and meet these 5 amazing educators that are with us a little bit more deeply. So I'm going to have them speak to some pictures that sort of represent themselves, and also I'm going to ask each of them to tell us what motivates them. And so we're going to start with, we're going to start with Tara, and you can tell us a little bit about yourself, Tara, and tell us what motivates you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tara. I am on the advisory board, and I am so happy to be here with you all. Thank you for spending some time with us tonight here on this call. One of the things that really motivates me is my family. I love being with my family. You can see my husband and my son there in my picture, and we have a little, we call him call her our guard dog, S'more, which she's tiny, but she barks a lot, so she'll let you know she's there. But what motivates me is my family, and making sure, especially at this time, I'm giving as much as I can to my students when I am online with them every day.
Great. Thank you, Tara. Next is Glenna. Oh, no, there's an image that couldn't be displayed, Glenna. But we can see a little bit of you, and you can tell us what motivates you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Glenna. I live in Florida, and I'm happy to be here with you tonight. I wish I could remember what was on that image. It must have been fantastic.
I think it was some of your students, maybe, but we'll try to get it back up for the presentation that we share.
Okay. I'm an instructional coach with schools that are in turnaround status, and an advocate for school improvement. What motivates me is collaboration and creativity, especially at school. I'm often told that work is my play. There's no better feeling than working with a team towards a goal and experience success along the way. And the best part about our profession is knowing that all these efforts positively impact the lives of kids. So thanks for having me here today.
Thank you, Glenna. Next, we're going to hear or learn about Janice.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining tonight. I think what motivates me more than anything, and professionally at least, is definitely equity. I think about ways and how can we leverage technology, and that's one of the pictures there. It's me and my friend at a ISTE conference. How can we use tools and strategies and pedagogies and the best practices to level that playing field and provide an excellent and outstanding education to every single one of our students, regardless of zip code and background background. So that's what motivates me.
Great. Thank you, Janice. And we'll go to Ashley next.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley. I'm from New York, but I teach in Washington, D.C. These pictures, you see my family and my friends. Those are two big things that motivate me. Also, similar to Janice, Black Lives Matter, equity. We want our kids to get what they deserve and what they need. In addition, something that motivates me is that in this job, you can never be perfect. You can always improve and get better. And so it's just always great to try to be a better teacher for my students who deserve it all.
Great. Thank you, Ashley. And we'll close out with Melissa.
Hello, everyone. My name is Melissa. I am a second grade National Board Certified teacher in Memphis, Tennessee. I work at John P. Freeman Optional School. I enjoy traveling around the world and working with kids. So you can see me there on that picture. I'm in India. My family inspires me, and I have one son. I adore him to death. He plays football at University of Memphis. He just transferred. And what motivates me are my Black and brown students. I love the fact that I can raise the bar high for them to inspire them to be the future change agents. Thank you so much for having me this evening.
Thanks, Melissa. I'm excited to get deeper in conversation with all of you about our panel questions this evening. You're all classroom teachers and educators and just on the ground doing good work every day. So we're going to start with the first question for some of you this evening. What is something you've done or you are doing this year to care for your students? And I'm going to go ahead and kick us off with Glenna starting, and then Glenna can pass it off to the next person.
Okay, so this year, with the COVID shutdowns and the return to school and, a lot of uncertainty and trying to incorporate virtual learning, one thing that I have done and that my team at school has done to care for our students is a lot of social emotional learning. So we make sure that we start every class every day by connecting with our students, giving them a warm welcome, engaging them in strategies that get them talking. We try to provide equity of voice, and of course end every class period with an optimistic closure. Try to focus on goal setting. Doesn't have to be like a big compliment or some false sense of security. It's more like something very practical. Here's what we're going to work to for next time, and then maybe pick back up with that. It gives the kids a sense of consistency when maybe that would normally be lacking in the conditions. Also, open communication with families and students. So getting used to being available a bit more than I would typically, it's not the brick and mortar 8 to 3 anymore. When they're virtual, they can pretty much get you any time. One little thing I have come to know is that Google Voice is my friend. I text parents using Google Voice. They love texting. So that's a great way to sort of keep updated with them and the students. And I also try to incorporate opportunities for students to demonstrate their understanding outside of the typical schoolwork. So like giving them a chance to maybe record their answer with their voice. Give them polls. They can answer polls. They can take pictures of things and submit them as sort of evidence of understanding, just to make it a little more engaging. And, I've got teenagers now, 14 and 15-year-olds predominantly, and they like to do little TikTok videos. And so anyway, bottom line, trying to make it more engaging and interesting and less of a chore for them, trying to include them and give them opportunities to express themselves. I guess Tara goes next.
Yes, thanks, Glenna. And I want to just say a lot of the stuff that Glenna has said are some of the things that I am also working on. One of the things I did not share is where I teach and what I teach. So I teach in California, and I'm currently teaching 7th and 8th graders middle school math. And some of the things that I had to really do differently was just really think about my students who are at home, especially at this time. We've been at home since March, so that's almost a year. And so some of the things that I really started to pick up on was that they needed additional support. For instance, I noticed a lot of students just needed targeted support. So I set up office hours for just targeted support for specific things where students are like, I just need to see that one more time. And so then they could come to a specific office hour versus just having this large office hour to come in to work. But also we've done extended time, and that has been something for me that I had to rethink, right? Rethinking around students need to be able to digest the information given, and they can't see me, they can't touch me. They can see me through a panel on Zoom, but they're not really with me. So just really giving them that additional time to do the work and then to make up the work has been a big connection piece to care for the students, because in school it's very punitive. I feel like where it's like you do the work, and if you don't, you get a 0. Where now it's like do the work and then you can revise it and return it in. But really thinking about, I need to make sure that you're okay on your end, and this is a way that I can do that. I can provide you that extra time. I can provide you time to revise and revisit, because that's what we really need to do as teachers. And then one of the biggest things that has helped my students out a lot is that they are very shy on camera. And so if they can get out of turning on their camera during class, they will. But if I open up chat and I'll say, type me a question in chat, or if they have anything that they want to say to me, just opening up that private chat where no one sees or hears what they're asking me has been very opening and good for my students. I talk to them through chat all through class. I mean, you would think 12-year-olds will want to open up and talk and play, and online they're not that way. So just that private chat, that opportunity to connect one-on-one has been amazing. And so when we start our day off with the SEL question of like, if you could do one thing different today than you did yesterday, just opening that conversation. If I were to ask them to talk, it wouldn't happen, but caring for them in a way that you don't have to feel embarrassed. We can just talk privately has been a big help and a support for my students. So I am going to pass it to Janice, and you can add on to that.
Thank you, Tara. So Tara referenced how differently she's thinking about time, and I would say that's my top thing, is rethinking about time as it relates to remote learning and the adolescent brain. With cognitive load, the amounts of information that our brain can take at one time, and the fact that we have to consider, I had to consider the passive versus active activities. So brain research tells us that middle school students can spend about 5 to 10 minutes of focused attention on passive learning such as listening to direct instruction, reading a text, listening to recording, versus active things where they're practicing, they're discussing and doing things like that. So that kind of timing and pacing really restructured my lessons, right? So I'm thinking instead of I do digital mini lessons. So for example, I start them off reading an article maybe, but only have them reading 2 sections of it, right? And keep them on for about 7 to 10 minutes on that task. And then switch them to a quick, check-in, like what did you learn, right? And give them a sentence stem for 1 to 2 minutes to break that up. And then they continue reading for 5 to 7 minutes, the rest of the article. And then after that, they summarize using a graphic organizer for another 5 to 10 minutes. And then they take a little break, and then they might complete a longer chunk of an assignment. So I think rethinking those times to align to the way the adolescent brain works and aligned to brain research has really impacted the way I run the classroom. The other thing is multiple on-ramps, providing those support, and really emphasizing that self-directed learning. So providing opportunities and mini lessons, again, and explicit training around like, how do I set a goal? How do I reflect on my learning for the day? And then putting into place what are called edu protocols. So protocols meaning they are student-centered learning frames. So the procedure or the tool stays the same, but the content changes to give that routine. And so gives them a little less cognitive load again, and makes it easier to bring in new content. So as an example, the structure of the digital mini lesson, for example, or having them, contribute to a slide on the class slide deck, and they do a sketch and tell. So maybe a drawing of what they just read about, and then a brief summary, and then I send them off to breakout rooms. So something where they all know what a sketch and tell is, and then we use it in different contexts. So providing that routine is really helpful. And then the other thing is, I've been reading this book called Nature Principle and getting outdoors. And so I'll just end with this, is that I also teach a class at ASU for future teachers and educators around environmental education. And a lot of it is, some of the assignments are about them actually getting outdoors and getting in touch with their sense of place. And my college students have told me, thank you so much. This class has been like a healing to me. I've been able to get out, especially during this pandemic, and connect with my environment. And they just over and over again, they're just thankful to me for giving them assignments that force them to go outdoors. So I'll just end with that. I think the time, the outdoors, and then the self-regulated learning. And I'm going to pass it off to Melissa.
Thank you. And as my colleagues and friends talked about, distant learning definitely disrupted the traditional classroom setting. In my district, we have been learning remotely since March. And so I really didn't want things to get complicated with my kids. So I tried to put a lot of things in place to show them that I really care and love them. And so students have access to me through Seesaw and Class Dojo. And then on last school year, I did a bold move, but I had to. The students had access to my cell number, and the parents, because the remote learning was so difficult and they needed more access to me. And to keep students connected and building a community, that was very important to me. And so I want to give them opportunities where they can communicate often. So SEL for me just don't happen during morning meetings. It happens all day throughout the curriculum through various content areas. And so like this Friday, we're getting ready to have hot chocolate and conversation. We're just going to have a discussion and talk about where we currently are as a class. And then on Friday, they have a day, thanks to Harmony SEL, which is a free website where they have personal treasure days, and they get to share treasures. I pick a few students, they get to share, and then their peers can dive deeper to get more information about their treasure. Also, I host a virtual lunch. And I did that with a class in New Jersey, an all-white classroom. My class is all black. And so I wanted to make sure they continue to build relationship with a diverse population. And so Michael Dunley and I invited a chef. We host a virtual lunch. And we created an opportunity to expose students to math, reading, science through cooking and reading recipes. But during that time when we was preparing that lunch, because the students got really comfortable with me, before we had the lunch, one of my students contacted me and said, my mother is a nurse. She was a central worker. He said, I don't have the things for the strawberry shortcake. I immediately ran to the store. I purchased those items to support that student. I also invited the students from my previous school year to my house for a drive-through end of the year school celebration. And during that drive-through, students received an on-the-spot photo with me in my cap and gown and Victoria hood, where they held up their future educational plans. While I physically distant myself, I still feel like I'm socializing with my kids. I don't really use the word social distance because we talk all the time. And I had a sign that says, I love you, you matter. And there also was a doctor that looked like them, where they had already fostered a relationship with her, and she made sure the kids were safe, and they had an opportunity to meet her. And and I found another opportunity to meet my students. So I think it's important whenever you can try to meet them. And in my situation, I did that. I invited the students to one of my former students' art studio to design a superhero puppet. The puppet was based off a paper each student had written titled, "If you had a superpower to combat racism, what would it be and why?" And then when I feel like the students just need to decompress, they had enough, we do mindful meditation where they get an opportunity to just breathe in and out. And I just want to make sure that they're okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa and Janice and Tara and Glenna, for all of those great ideas. I know everybody in the different modes of learning this year have been thinking of ways to care for students and attend to their social and emotional learning in the states they're in. And so such great ideas. I just wanted to share with everybody that's with us tonight some of the resources that might be helpful, and some of them, I know Janice talked about getting kids out in nature and doing, well, actually in that case it was college students, so young adults or adults. But other ideas that are linked here, all of these links are in your resources tab as well. The Calm app or something else like it to do some deep breathing meditation. This document from Facing History and Ourselves, I've linked it again for the next question as well, but Section 3 is around fostering a community of learners. It's intended for a hybrid start or remote start, but really they're activities that could be used at any time during in-person or virtual learning. And then many of the outdoor nature resources that Janice shared with all of you. So we would love for you to take a minute in the chat and hear from the audience that's with us tonight around other ideas that you have or other ways that you're caring for your students during this school year that you'd like to share with the audience. Feel free to just share an idea, or you can even do a hyperlink if you have a site that we should check out. But we would love to sort of do a little bit of crowdsourcing on this webinar this evening and hear from all of you in the group chat. So I'll be quiet for a minute and let you do that, and then we'll move on to the next question for our panelists. I want to make sure we have time to get to all three of the other questions this evening, but feel free as you have ideas to continue to put them in the chat. And we're going to hear from Ashley first. We didn't get to hear from you yet, Ashley, and then Melissa again around how have the two of you attended to identity, either yours or your students in instruction during this school year. So we'll start with Ashley first.
Hi, everyone. So a big thing for me is that I value and encourage authenticity for myself and my students. So in the classroom, but also virtual learning, I am my truest self, and they know that. I teach predominantly Black students, and so I let them know that it's okay to be who you are, however that is, but we're still going to learn and be great in this classroom. Similar to what Melissa said earlier, like, I love giving those kids high expectations, and then they reach them because I'm here, like, and they understand, like, oh, look, Mr. Rohn did it, so I can do it too. I also validate their experiences by, showing relatable books, videos, like even doing things that they love, like TikTok. There's days that I'm like, let's play this TikTok song. Y'all could teach me through the screen, through the computer, through Zoom. And so they really love doing these things. Also, one way that I really attend to their identity is I do not hide. I do not ignore the things that are happening. Yes, we're virtual, but a lot of things have happened in the world, like 2020 and even 2021. And so Ms. Rohn is very aware of what's going on, and we talk about it. I teach 4th grade, and I teach in Washington, D.C., so a lot of the things that happen, they either see it, hear it, or like literally live a few blocks away from it. So it's really important for me to speak to them about things that affect their identity. oh, let's talk about, did you guys see what happened with Breonna Taylor? Did you guys see what happened with George Floyd? Even when the Capitol was stormed, let's talk about that. School was literally closed for after that. We didn't have school the next day. And so it's very important for me to talk about my identity to my kids so they know I was just like you guys and I made it, and their own identities, because so that they know that there's someone who is out there really, really caring for them. Sorry, Melissa, you could go.
Okay, thank you. Great ideas. And just like my friend had just discussed, working with Black and brown children, it's very important to let them know that they are important and they matter. And to help them deal with the identity, it's very important to be empowered. And so I work very hard to empower my primary babies. So I've worked for years to elevate the student voice. I take my students on field trips to places like Little Rock High School to see where historical battles for school integration played out. Now that we are virtual, it's not stopping. I'm contacting those people to places for virtual field trips. So they have talked to the Civil Rights Museum on several occasions this year. And if we realize what's going on, we know that what is happening, our students see it because they're at home and with their families. So the recent attention to social unrest has been up close and personal for so many years, but our children are really exposed to so much more. And so recently I had my students to create a video about their dreams. And some of them just said, hey, Black Lives Matter, so just chill. And I still hope in my students by centering Black culture in the current curriculum through creating a culturally responsive classroom. My students can see themselves in content. I recently taught a place value lesson that included facts about Black politicians that attended HBCU schools. We use the numbers from important dates as the inspiration for activities dealing with place value. And now, of course, colleagues, I had to talk to my students about the Vice President, Kamala Harris, who attended Howard University. And so during our study, we explored ways that politicians engage with the work of uniting the country, even when we're faced with so much. And I then asked my students to think about ways that they could contribute to unify our country. And so my students know at a very young age that they're never too young, my Black and brown babies, to have a voice for social justice. And so I also use texts by Black authors, as once mentioned, about Black people who help students see themselves. It helps the students see themselves in text. I've also used Twitter to reach out to Black authors. I'm getting ready to have Marguerite Mitchell come to my class to read some of the Black books that she published. I invite Black STEM professionals because I want my students to know that they can see a problem in their community and help change it. And so recently, I host a virtual white coat ceremony where the parents were involved, those relationships where the parents put on the coats and pinned them because we couldn't do it. But it was led by Black STEM professionals. So that's just some ways where I allow my students to be able to identify who they are as people, as small people, and who they can be as adults. Thank you.
Thank you both. Thank you, actually, all five of you who are with us this evening. You're so inspiring, and I feel like there's so much hope in everything that you said, and it's easy to get down in all the challenges of this year, but just hearing from you makes me inspired and feel excited. So some more resources to check out if you're interested in thinking about identity and how to address the identity of yourselves or your students in your classroom. Again, the piece from Facing History in Ourselves. Section 2 is around exploring identity and getting to know each other. And while I don't work with young students, I do work with educators in my role. I've actually used several of these activities in professional learning work that I've done with educators around identity. And they've just been really powerful for people to think about themselves and how that might impact the ways in which they work with students. So I would definitely suggest checking those out, as well as the other resources that are on this slide around identity. And so I have one more question for all of you. If you have other ideas that you have, or ways that you've attended to identity of either yourselves or your students that you would like to share with the audience, please feel free to put that in the group chat so that we can, again, learn from one another. I've been reading all of the great ideas you've recently all put about ways that you've cared for your students during these times. And so, again, taking inspiration from the audience as well. And as I move into the next question, or the last question for our Core Advocate Advisory Board members, just remember that we also will have time at the end of the webinar this evening for questions for the panelists, questions for all of the 5 educators that are with us this evening. And so if, as one of them is speaking, if you have questions for them, be sure to put that in the group chat, and we will, or actually you could put it in the Q&A. Sorry, Claire, my colleague Claire is looking at the Q&A and monitoring that as we go. And so she will be selecting questions from the Q&A for our educator panelists at the end of the webinar this evening. So with that, we'll move into the final question, which is just as important as how all of you are caring for your students during this time. This question is, how are you caring for yourself, personally or professionally this year? And so we will start with Tara.
All right, hello again. This question is hitting hard for me about how you care for yourself. And I think every day I am reinventing myself of making sure I care for myself as a parent and as an educator. So one of the things I had to be really thoughtful about was scheduling my time. So when am I going to take my breaks? When am I going to log off? When do I answer emails? And setting that up for myself and being okay with setting boundaries. So that has been hard for me, because when I was at school and we were at school and I would be there all day long, my door was open. Kids could come in any time to talk to me, ask me questions, ask for a hug, whatever it is that they needed, I was there for them. And so when we went virtual, I became that same open door all day long. So they could email me and I'd instantly email them back. They could send me a message through Google Classroom and I was right there over the weekend. And so I was killing myself, because not only was I trying to be everything for the students, but I wasn't being everything for myself, and I definitely was taken away from my family. And so I had to set boundaries for myself. So this is the time that I'm going to work, and this is the time I'm going to put it away. And I had to keep myself honest with that. When I decided that early on, I needed a place to work if I'm going to work from home, because my bedroom is not my workplace. My bedroom is for me to relax. And so I have an office now. And so when I leave my office, I leave my stuff. And so if I need to go back and do more work, I go to the office and do work. I don't take it into the room with me and act like I'm going to do work and watch TV and, go through that cycle of just being on all the time. And so that has been very important. So making space for myself to schedule out my day, to also what are things that I still want to know, and how can I make that move professionally. So if I decide that I'm going to be off at 4 or 5 o'clock on Friday, then I need to be off. But then if there's something professionally that I want for myself, if I don't know how to do these things that I want to make happen for my students, for instance, if I'm looking at a new platform, I made time for myself to say during my break at school, so when I don't have a third period class for that 80 minutes, can I find something professionally that's going to make me a better teacher, and then maximize my time? I also, and when this has been tough because I struggle with it every day, but also eliminating fluff. And some of the stuff I did at school was super fun and it took time and I was okay with it, but some of it was fluff. And when at a time right now where students have so many other things that they want to do at home, like it is way more cool to be at home and play a video game than it is to be sitting in front of a computer on Zoom. How am I going to grab their attention and keep it for the time that I can and make it as meaningful as possible and not kill myself when they don't get it? And so just eliminating the fluff of being very succinct in what I'm asking of my students and then being very thoughtful around what is my next step so that I can have the personal time to myself to regroup. And that has been a big transition. Even today, I got off today from work and I was like, I can do as much as I can, but I can't go home with the kids. And so how do I take care of myself? I do the best that I can at all times, and I'm okay with maybe I'm not going to get everything done, but I'm doing everything I can for my students. I'm going to pass it off to Janice.
Thank you, Tara. So I think to pick up from Tara, I think number one, to take care of myself is really to be, to always be kind to others and myself, right? And just realize that we are all doing the best we can. And I think that empathy is super important at a time like this. I'll just speak to the links that I put in on the next slide. One of them is TED.com, so TED Talks, and the other one is Google Art and Culture. And I love both of those because I find in these days, I'm just trying to stay active and learn new things. And so that's, to me, what keeps me going and learning and growing personally and professionally. So I love those two places. I go there to, learn about the world and just learn some new things that are out there. The other thing is I'm going to go back to the outdoors. I've been reading this book called The Nature Principle, and it's by the same author who wrote The Last Child in the Woods, and it's by Richard Louv, and it's called Nature Principle, Reconnecting with Life in a Virtual Age. So it couldn't have been better timing, really, reading this book. And so I'm just going to read a little bit from here. It says that families can be bound over generations by a shared love of baseball, by a family business, by other shared interests, but nature has its own power. What better way to escape the constant interrupting beeping of modern life and actually have a chance to spend concentrated time with one another than a walk in the woods? Unplugging from electronics and taking the baby into the backyard, a park, or a nature trail can eliminate distractions and create an opportunity for what is called affective sharing, oohing and eyeing together over the sun shining through the leaves of a big tree, feeling the rough bark and the soft moss on the tree's trunk, listening to the sounds of birds or squirrels, feeling a soft spring rain or a light winter snowfall on your face. Time in nature helps both the child and the parent by building their shared sense of attachment and by reducing stress. By following a prescription for more nature experience together, families will discover a win-win situation in which both children and adults benefit as individuals, even as they are strengthening those important family bonds that all children and adults need. So anyway, and it goes on, but I just really been enjoying that and making a point, even though, I live in an urban place, there's still green spaces. I've recently discovered regional parks that are very free to low cost. And I've been taking those trips around the city with my family, making sure we get out as at least for a day trip if we can. But just finding that time so that we have those opportunities. And that has been really, really great. My house has had water damage, so I've been living at my parents' house with my kids, and so that adds another layer onto the pandemic experience. But just trying to stay positive and making that time to reconnect again with one another and with the outdoors. Sorry, I'm going to pass it on to Glenna.
Thanks, Janice. That sounds lovely. I got to admit, I'm more of an air-conditioned gal down here in Florida. So the thing I have first learned to do is something Tara mentioned, is know when I am off the hook for answering texts and emails. I don't know about you guys, but my students love to get super active on the Teams chat and the Google Voice text messages around like 2 a.m. I think that's when they get done with their, I don't know if you've ever heard of Twitch, but that's their thing. They like to do these live streams of video games all night long. So anyway, I know that I'm not going to answer my texts and emails and set for certain hours of the day that are like suitable for me. I also have started learning how to recognize my triggers or maybe indicators of fatigue, and then take a step back and before I get grouchy, maybe not with the students, maybe with my husband or maybe with my own kids, colleagues. I know today, as a matter of fact, I had worked for like hours on something we use Canvas at my school, and one of my colleagues accidentally deleted it. So I was like, okay, Glenna, it is time to take a step back and take a few deep breaths before you talk to that person about how we're going to troubleshoot this issue. So, that's honestly, we're all doing the best we can. I give myself permission to make mistakes, and I give my colleagues permission to make mistakes, and, just sort of be more flexible and roll with it. And also another little tidbit, just in case you haven't discovered blue light glasses, they really help with the eye fatigue. I actually found some that are readers because I'm 47 and I can't read anything without glasses anymore. So they are like the lifesaver of my life. They really took my headaches and eye strain down like a tremendous amount. And then also, finally, before I go, I wanted to mention connecting with other professionals like you guys. So I know, like, when we meet with people who we work with every day or even in our districts, there's this sort of, like, feeling of being guarded because you don't want to give out every little detail, right? But when you get this network of people maybe across your state, across the country, it gives you perspective. It makes you feel like you can connect with people who understand, and there's no threat. It's not intimidating. And I find that even like when I've had a long day of work and I have a call with maybe the core advocates or maybe with, Leadership Florida or whichever group, but I feel so energized when I get to the end of that call. It's like, I don't know, it's just very refreshing. So my advice would be, a great place to find these are like on Twitter. You can find all kinds of groups of different like-minded educators, people who are into technology, people who are into elementary ed, high school, middle school, if you're brave enough to teach middle school. So anyway, that's my advice. And if you guys have any great ideas for me or want to talk me down before I talk to the colleague who deleted my work, I would appreciate it. And I think it's time for Ashley now.
Thank you. Similarly to what these ladies have said, I have been giving myself and my coworkers grace during this time. Like Glenna said, like we are all working as hard as we can during this time, this unforeseen time. No one has ever done this before. And so it's really, really important to give everyone grace and give yourself grace. Tara was saying how like her work, where she works is different from her room, her office, and that's super important. I tend to bring my computer to my bed and I realize that's not okay. And so I have to be okay with, like, it's okay if I didn't finish this today. I have tomorrow, or it's okay to turn my computer off during this time because I want to relax and watch TV or read a book, whatever the case is. But I also really take care of myself by advocating for the things I need from like my admin, my VP and principal. In my team, before I didn't advocate for as much as what I needed. I would just, grind and do what I needed to do. Not saying that I'm not grinding now, but I think I've learned from other people that it's really okay to say like, hey, this is hard, or I need some more time. I ask the questions that I need to ask for clarification. Also, like some other things that I do, like I'm enjoying going to the gym. I call my friends and my family. I work on other things that I may still be on my computer, but they don't necessarily have to do with work because I'm stressed. That's stressing me out. I've also started like listening to audiobooks and like I'm reading more. And so I'm thinking about how am I going to be a better teacher to my kids, even though we both don't really like the situation. Like kids don't really want to be on a computer all day and teachers either. And so grace is the biggest thing, and also being flexible. So that's you have to fall in the middle of the two. Like, yes, give yourself grace, but also working and being flexible with whatever is thrown at you. Because I don't know about you guys, but my admin team has thrown so many different things. Oh, we're going to do this. Oh, we're going to do that. And it can get really frustrating because like, hello, we're already teaching during a pandemic, but you have to be flexible because honestly, I'd say like, it is what it is. Like we just got to get through it. And, but yeah, that's about it. Just take care of yourself, put yourself first, because if you're not okay, then you can't be a great teacher. That's all I have.
Thank you so much, Ashley and Glenna and Janice and Tara. You're so right. Taking care of ourselves is taking care of students, because we can't be who we are the best we can be. This is an interesting slide. We've got some funky things happening here. But regardless, the links to these will be in the resources tab, and we'll try to fix the slides before we email it out. So some interesting things around prioritizing self-care and self-care strategies. Also the SciStarter website, and what Janice mentioned around, I think actually Glenna mentioned TED Talks. And the last one, which you really can't see, is a link to Google Arts and Culture, which I never even knew about until one of you shared that resource with me. But it's definitely a site I want to dig into more deeply, and seems like a great place to just spend some time to unplug and do some mindless learning. So great resources, and thank you so much to our group that shared it. Oh, I'm sorry, I got a dog, darn it. So we have time now for questions for our guests, and there was one question that came up in the Q&A that I can start with, and then if any of the audience members who are here with us this evening have other questions you'd like to ask our guests tonight, feel free to put those in the Q&A. But the first question is around keeping kids engaged. So somebody asked a question, how to keep kids engaged when you're losing them. And I think that came up in the first section around how you're caring for your students. But if any of the five of you would like to answer about how to keep kids engaged on the computer and in the Zooms, that would be great. And then feel free as they're answering that question to ask other questions if you have them.
I can start just because this is one thing I'm still working on. So I don't have like the specialty for it, but what I'm working on is finding different avenues to engage students. And so instead of just engaging them with me talking, you listen. I start off with a warm-up, a different platform. I might change over to a quizzes, but just finding different ways to engage them in the moment, providing that break. I make sure I give them a break at least 20 to 30 minutes in. And then I tell them, yeah, I need you to get up and go outside, like go take a walk. And when they come back, what did you see when you took a break? Because I don't want them sitting in front of a computer, but keeping them engaged. I also feel like I need to think about where they are. They're children. They're 12. And I think about my 12-year-old son. He benefits from a different platform. So if I change the platform, other students might join in. If I change how I ask the question, so just really being flexible around, not gamifying my class, but just changing the platform that's going to allow them to re-engage and reconnect with something as I move forward.
And this is Melissa, and what I do to keep my students engaged as well, I think about ways to invite experts, giving them someone else to learn from. And right now, with everybody working in a virtual space, it has been pretty easy getting people involved. I love using Skype with a scientist, and you can go on there and request different STEM professionals, and they also added psychologists, so they can even help with SEL learning. And if you're working hybrid or at school or remotely, I think it's still important to think about how to engage students in hands-on activities. And I have continued to do that even in a remote learning space. And I think about getting things that are cost efficient. So if we learn about sounds through physical science, I think about items that they can use at home and where they can create instruments. And then we can become one band making one sound. So I don't know how you're teaching, but I think it's very important to pretty much do what you've been doing, but think about how you can do it in a virtual space and how it can be fun and exciting. And don't forget student agency. Ask the kids, how do you want to learn? And just see how they give you so many things to keep them engaged and involved in learning. Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa. This is Janice. I'm just going to add a few things. I think the student part is so key. It's all about, I've been trying to find ways to give them more voice and choice. And so I'm going to drop in 3 links to templates. So one is the EDGE protocols that I referenced. Another one is using playlists. So playlists are an awesome way to provide that, again, that student agency. And then HyperDocs is another tool that I've been, I love to use. So, and they can all be differentiated and customized for the learning environment, the age, and the grade. So I'll drop those in the chat.
Thank you, Janice. And we can make sure they get put in the slide deck also when it gets put on the website so that other people can access those links as well. So thank you so much to all 5 of you, Tara, Janice, Glenna, Ashley, and Melissa, for all the great inspiration that you've provided this evening and reminding us that that this job can be fun and that there are ways for us to connect with kids even if we're in a virtual world, and there's ways to make the instruction exciting for kids. We're really inspired by you all. I'm going to kick it back over to Claire to close us out, but I will say that we are going to be opening up a second round of applications for our Core Advocate Advisory Board in the spring. We're hoping that many of our current advisory board members will continue with us for a second year, but we also will have space for new members of the advisory board, so keep a lookout for that. You all truly are education leaders that we look up to, and I know all of us at Student Achievement Partners have learned so much from you, and we hope to continue learning from all of you. We know that it's important for us to listen to the teachers that are in the classrooms doing instruction with kids every day. So thank you so much for joining us, and Claire's going to close us out.
Yep, thanks, Jenny. So just one more pitch to join the network, since we had so many first-timers on tonight. If you aren't a member of the network, go ahead and fill out that survey that's in your green resource widget to become a member of the Core Advocate Network. It's free, and you'll get lots more opportunities like this. And just a few more reminders about how to stay in touch with us. We have a website, Achieve the Core. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Pinterest. And then we hope you'll join us again later this month. We're having a Coffee and Conversations, which is a little bit different than a webinar. It's more discussion-based. It's over Zoom, and you can get into small groups and discuss the topic as well as listen to some expert panelists. And the topic this month is It's Not Too Early, LGBTQ+ Advocacy in Elementary Schools. And the link to register is right here, and it's also in the resource widget. So thank you all for joining us tonight. If you want to find out more about opportunities, again, either join the Core Advocate Network get emails, or you can find the calendar on the events portion of our website, and you can see all of the different opportunities that are upcoming. So again, thank you to our panelists, and thank you to everyone for joining us tonight. Have a good evening.